Today I'm planting peanuts, and I did a video a long time ago about peanuts, and I ground some into peanut butter. Uh, so I'll put a link to that in the description box if you're interested in seeing how that went. But they're such a great crop to grow, and it's something that's often overlooked by people that I thought that it was worth repeating. I know that when you go to the store to buy seeds, you don't see peanut seeds hanging there, so it's easy to forget. And you don't need any special seeds to grow peanuts. You can just buy a bag of peanuts from the grocery store, shell them out, plant them, they'll grow just fine. So here's the peanuts that I'm going to plant. You want to make sure to have raw peanuts, don't get roasted. They should be planted anywhere from 1 to 4 inches deep, and the depth is dependent on how dry your soil is. If you have real dry soil, then it's better to go a little deeper where they can get to the moisture. I'm going to plant mine about 2 or 3 inches deep, and the rows should be spaced anywhere from 2 to 3 feet apart. But I did see information where farmers were advised that they get maximum production at 18 inches apart spacing. Peanuts have one of the most interesting growth habits I've ever seen. The ones that I grew got about 18 inches tall and they were bushy. The runner types will stay more flat on the ground, but in about a month they'll start blooming, and the bloom will pollinate itself, and then the flower falls off, and the stem that the bloom was on will get long, and it will burrow down into the ground, and a peanut will be formed at the end of that stem. That stem is called a peg, and the process is called pegging. And when your peanuts start to peg, it's a good idea to go along and loosen up the soil so it'll make it easier for that stem to burrow into the ground. They generally don't have a lot of problems with pests or diseases. Weeding can be a bit of a problem because you need to be careful when you weed not to pull those pegs out of the ground. They bloom over a fairly long period of time, so when you dig your peanuts, you're going to have peanuts at all various stages. You want to get them out of the ground when the leaves start to turn yellow, and be sure not to wait too long or some of those pods will start to sprout. In order to plant them, just shell them out and plant the little seeds. You can plant the whole peanut, but it'll take a lot longer for them to emerge that way. Very often you don't see peanuts grown up north, but you can grow them up north as well. You know, farmers grow for maximum production, and even though the peanuts will do fairly well up there, they're not going to grow them. They're going to stick to the south where they have a sandy soil and a warmer climate. I saw a video the other day where a man in Nova Scotia grew peanuts. He planted them early June, and he was pulling them in early October. So you can grow them as far north as Nova Scotia. Peanuts need about 4 months of frost-free weather. If you plant them too soon, they will rot. They should be planted anywhere from early May to early June. So I'm on the outer limits of the planting date. So if you're interested in growing peanuts, don't put it off. It needs to be done now. I had to wait because we had so much rain. It's taken a long time for my soil to warm up. There's basically 4 types of peanuts that are grown in the United States. One is a Virginia peanut, which is what I'm going to grow. They're a larger peanut, and the seeds are elongated. And then there's a runner type that's basically the same as the Virginia, only they're smaller. There's a Spanish type of peanut, and they have the little round seeds with the red coating. And then there's a Valencia, and you can usually identify the Valencia because there'll be like 4 seeds to each pod, and the pods are kind of straight, whereas the Virginias are kind of like 2 seeds to a pod and like big bumps. The Valencias are just straighter. The Spanish peanuts and the Valencias tend to grow better in northern climates, and they have a shorter growing season, some as short as 90 days. What I'm going to do, I have a row of potatoes here, and I'm going to run a row down each side of these potatoes, and then once the potatoes come out in a couple of weeks, then I'll once again have a path. So that's one way I'm going to try to stretch a little more production out of my garden. I'm going to run a row of peanuts down each side of my potatoes here, and when the peanuts need more room, these potatoes will be coming out, and then the potato row will become the path between my peanuts. One thing I did a couple years ago to get more production out of my garden was I planted peanuts down the center of each of the paths of every other row. For example, on this row, I left that path clear so that I could pick the tomatoes and the peppers. And then in this row, I planted peanuts down the center of the path. And then in this row, I left the path open so that I could pick the things planted on each side. And then I ran a row of peanuts down the center of this path. When I did it that way, I had a lot of coal crops out here. Let's say I had cabbage planted on one side and potatoes on the other. And then by the time that the peanuts needed more room, the cabbage and the potatoes were gone. So it worked out great doing it that way. And this year, if I have more peanuts than I need to plant on each side of those potatoes, I'm going to pull up some dirt along the side of these cucumbers and run a row of peanuts right smack down beside them. By the time the peanuts need more room to grow, these cucumbers will be gone. So that's a way you can get more production out of your garden. This video clip shows what I'm talking about, where I planted the peanuts down the center of the path between the two rows of cabbage. This video clip was from a couple of years ago. And you can also see what the peanuts look like when they first emerge from the ground. They're very large plants when they first sprout. This is a picture of what one of the plants looked like when I pulled it up. And you'll see what I mean about how the peanuts grow on the pegs. You'll look, the peanuts are not on the roots. They are on the stems that the blooms were formerly on. The tops can be used for animal feed, and the shells can be used for mulching or compost material. And of course, you can eat the seeds and grind them into peanut butter, or you could even extract the peanut oil from them. Farmers generally don't grow them up north because they want the maximum production from their land, so they're going to grow whatever grows best up north. I've grown them here, and I have the worst soil for growing peanuts, but they did pretty well. I was rather pleased with the way they turned out. I have poorly drained clay soil, and like I said, they like a sandy soil better. After they're pulled, you want to lay the plants in the sun for a couple of days and let them dry. Then you pull the peanuts off of the plants and store them in a cool, dry place. Be sure not to store them in a situation like a 5-gallon bucket with a lid on it, because they will mildew, and I can tell you that one from experience. This year I'm going to put them in burlap bags and hang them from the ceiling. It's recommended to treat the peanut seed with a bacteria called Rhizobium, and by doing that it will help the plants take nitrogen from the air and convert it into nitrogen that they can use themselves, and they'll also leave an excess that plants can use in the future. But I didn't inoculate my peanuts when I grew them before, and in spite of it, the peanuts did fix nitrogen and leave it in my soil, because after I pulled my peanuts, I planted wheat, and in the spring when the wheat started greening up, I could see definite dark green streaks where I grew peanuts previously. So it's not essential. It does help the plants grow better, and you would increase your production if you inoculated the seed. So here's all the peanuts that I've shelled out, and I've already planted about a 70-foot row. And when I grew these before, I ended up with, I say, 20 to 30 pods per plant. And when you consider there's 2 seeds per pod, I've looked at 40 to 60 return on my seed. So planting peanuts is a good deal in my opinion. And mind you, I don't have the best soil for it. So if you have a better soil type than I do, I have the worst soil type for growing peanuts. So you can do at least that or even better. Well, I'm all done. I got the peanuts planted, and all I got about 180 feet out of that 1.5 pound bag of peanuts. And all I have to do now is keep it watered and weeded and cross my fingers, say a prayer, and hope that I'm showing you a great harvest come October. Hope it helps.